Good morning guys. We're back at it again with another video. So a couple videos ago, I mentioned that I'm going to be using the Uponor logic system for our rough-in plumbing for the home. And many of you expressed interest in learning more about the system and how I'm going to be using it in our home here. So we're just going to dedicate today's video to talking about this system, the main differences between Pex A and Pex B. So I'm going to try to make this as visual and kind of as clear as I can in video format so that you guys really understand why I'm using this system as opposed to a standard Pex system or maybe like a manifold system or anything like that. Full disclosure with this video, I'm not sponsored by Uponor. I'm not sponsored by Milwaukee. I'm not sponsored by Taco Comfort. I'm not sponsored by Supply House. So I paid full price for everything here. And the reason why I chose a lot of these things because I follow a lot of plumbers on Instagram and I just kind of follow and see what they do because they're working in high-end homes and they're doing all types of different cool stuff. So I follow a lot of plumbers online. So that's how, you know, I've started to build a knowledge base around plumbing. I'm more of a DIY homeowner. I'm not a licensed plumber or anything like that. But as someone who has been doing his own plumbing, you know, I did my own plumbing in the tiny house, and obviously in this house here, I'm going to be doing all the plumbing in here as well. So I just like things that are fast, efficient, and they make a lot of sense. And there's a lot of benefits to using Pex A over Pex B, and let's actually start going into that right now. So let's start off with the Pex A pipe. It looks pretty much the same as Pex B. There's not much difference in terms of the size or anything like that. So we've got our 1/2 inch, we've got our 3/4, and then we've got our 1 inch size here. So one of the major differences between Pex A and Pex B is how you make your connections with all the different fittings that you're going to be using. So this is a Pex B crimp fitting, just a standard elbow that you get at Home Depot or Lowe's. The way that you'd make this connection typically is you need to get your crimp ring on here, and then you take your fitting, slide it inside of the pipe, put your crimp ring over top, and then from there you've got to use a crimp tool like this, get it open, get it situated on the ring, and then from there you just squeeze this together and that's your crimp connection right there. Some issues that I found with using crimp rings and crimp connections like this is that it can be a pain in the ass to get these connections in really tight spaces. Because you got to imagine, you might have to fit this tool in a very kind of odd place. So it can be very difficult to actually make certain connections. And especially once you get up to using 3/4 inch, it becomes even more tricky and more difficult. So we've got the same piece of 1/2 inch Pex here, and we've got a Pex A Uponor fitting. So if we try to stick these together, you'll notice that the fitting, it doesn't go inside the pipe. The fitting diameter here is actually the same diameter as the pipe, so they're not going to go in together. So how do we get to make this connection? So you take one of their little ring stops here, attach it onto the end, and then you use an expander tool to expand the fitting to go over this. Now, why that is important is because this has memory to it. So as you expand it, it's going to go back to its original size. And what the big benefit of this is that this connection, this seal connection around here, actually gets tighter over time. It doesn't get looser because it's got this memory in it, so it's going to go back to its original size. So the next thing that you're going to notice here is that the Pex A fitting for the Uponor system, you notice how the fitting is much larger as opposed to the Pex B fitting. So one thing that you want to keep in mind when you're running a plumbing system is that the more fittings that you use, the more pressure loss that you're going to incur because the water's got to go around an elbow like this. So with using the Pex A fittings and you've got elbows, you're going to incur less pressure loss with using these fittings because the diameter is larger. And then if you look at the difference between 3/4 inch fittings, this is your 3/4 inch Pex B fitting, this is your 3/4 inch Pex A fitting. So you can just tell very easily, like this is going to be a much better fitting. You're going to have less pressure loss and better flow. So like I mentioned earlier, if you're using Pex B with the fittings and the crimp rings, you got to use a crimp tool like this or something similar in order to make all your different connections. But Uponor and Milwaukee teamed up together to make a tool that is specific for using with the Pex A system. So this is the M12 ProPex Expander. It comes standard with 1/2 inch, 3/4, and 1 inch here. This tool runs, I think, around $350 to $400. I'll leave a link to where it is on Home Depot and on Amazon as well if you want to check it out. So obviously something like this is going to be more expensive than a crimp tool like this. I think these are 40 or 50 bucks or something like that. I bought this, I think, 4 or 5 years ago. So this is how you make the different connections. So you can see the tool is expanding and then also rotating at the same time. So to make this connection here, this is probably going to blow some of your minds because it definitely blew my mind the first time that I used it. So you just basically stick the expander in here. Let it expand. Then you just take your fitting and just put it in there like that. And that's it. So you let it start to reset to its original size for probably about 5 seconds, 10 seconds. And then basically now, at this point, I have a watertight connection. So I cannot pull this apart right now. So as that sealing ring goes back to its original size, it makes basically a tighter seal around it. So it actually gets tighter over time. Now another good thing with these fittings, which is the same as Pex B, is that you can also rotate these fittings after it's been sealed. You can do the same with Pex B, so you can still do the same with Pex A. So if you've been using crimps like myself for a while now, you can see how much easier install is going to be because you don't need to have this tool right around the fitting here. You can just expand the pipe and then just make the connection. So if you were to do this with the tool, you'd have to connect these pieces and then try to get your tool in here and then crimp it down. So install is much easier with using kind of an expander tool like this as opposed to a crimp tool. Now, say for example, you muck something up and you want to remove the fitting. When you're using crimp rings, I don't know of a really good way of doing it other than just like cutting it with, I don't know, with like a disc or something. But in order to remove these connections, all you need is a heat gun here. I've actually never done this before, so we're learning together on this video. But if we heat this up, man, this heat gun sounds like shit. Good old Harbor Freight. So if you heat it up until it's clear, so then you can just basically take that sealing ring right off. You just cut through it like that, and then pull your pipe back. We'll probably just have to heat this up just a little bit more. You should be able to just pop that right out. So one other benefit of using Pex A as opposed to Pex B is that if you kink your pipe, if it's Pex A, you can't reuse that pipe. But with Pex A, we can do basically the same thing here. Just put a big old crimp in it and then just heat the pipe up. Oh boy. So you should be able to see the difference in the pipe there, how it's clear there where I was heating it. And basically all you have to do is just let that cool down and then you can reuse that pipe. So another benefit of using Pex A as opposed to Pex B is that you can tell how we can expand the pipe. So this pipe is actually burst proof. So if you had Pex B and it was a line that froze, you might get some expansion with it and it might burst, but this stuff is much more burst proof, I guess you could say. So if any of these water lines were frozen, say they're outside doing irrigation, or they're maybe not buried enough underground, or they're in a space where it could freeze potentially, then it's not going to burst as easily, I would say. I'm not going to say it's going to be 100% burst proof because I don't know how exactly these fittings would work. So if you had these fittings with the pipe and this froze too, I don't know exactly how that worked together, but this is much more burst proof than Pex B. So one of the other major benefits of using this system is that they have such a wide variety of different multi-port outlets. So the way that the Uponor logic system works is that you're kind of designating your house into different zones. So I know I've got two distinct zones. There's essentially one side of the house and the other side of the house. And instead of having a bunch of reducing tees and branch tees kind of like this, and linking them together to have your 1/2 inch lines going to your different fixtures, is that you can have one big guy, kind of like a manifold here, where you have your pipe come in, you have all your 1/2 inch lines going to the different fixtures, and then you can continue this to hit another zone in your house. They also have fixtures that they only have like 3 ports or 4 ports. You can kind of change the inlet and the outlet size. Some of them are capped at the end here. This is like a flow through. So they have different options, and you can get kind of creative with how you're going to plumb things because you got different options. So one of the things that is becoming really good with the system is that you can get all different types of like fixture boxes, and something like this, which is a water box for a fridge here. And you can see it's got a Uponor or a Pex A connection on the bottom there. And then you can even do it for copper stub outs. So for your stub outs for any sinks or your toilets, you can basically go from Pex A to copper with a stub out like this. Nice clean transition. You're not soldering anything. You're not threading anything. You're basically just doing the same connection with the seal ring right over top of this here with the pipe. So other companies are starting to get into the mix as well. This is an Aqua hose hydrant here. They did send these to me for free. I didn't pay for these guys, but I would have bought them anyways because they are badass. So even these guys here, they've got a fitting for the end that is a Pex A fitting. So to connect to your hose hydrant going outside, you can have a strict Pex A fitting. Don't need any weird threads or anything like that. Simple, clean transitions, money. So all the fittings and all the pipe that I buy for Pex A stuff for using with the Uponor, I get from supplyhouse.com. So the cool thing with supplyhouse.com, which I love buying plumbing on there, as opposed to going to either the Supply House or to Home Depot or Lowe's. So you're typically not going to find Pex A stuff in Home Depot or Lowe's. You should find them in Ferguson's or other supply houses. But the nice thing about supplyhouse.com is that you can see everything that different brands offer. One thing when you go to certain stores is that they may only have a selection of what a brand offers, as opposed to going on to a site like Supply House. You can see basically everything, and you can get things like super custom and exactly what you need. So they have lots of different options so that you can transition from 1 inch to 3/4 inch, which we're going to be doing on our hotline here. And you can just get very specific with how you want to do things. Awesome, guys. Thanks so much for watching. I will catch you on the next video when we're actually running the pipe for it. And so you'll see the concept, and then you'll see the actual full-on application of it. Awesome, guys. Thanks so much for watching. Catch you on the next video. Talk to you soon. Peace.